My name is Joe Clark, and I live in Summers. And the latecomer, we won't hold that against him too much. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. We had to have somebody to pick on. So I own a company called Genesis Biochar, and this is what we make. If you wanna, don't stick your hands in there. If you want to taste it, it's okay. It's good for you. Well, good diverse group, and there's a lot of knowledge in this room, I can tell. And myself, I didn't go to school, formal education for what I do. I was raised by gardeners who were raised in the Depression. So food in my house, no matter how much money we had, was always very important. One of my earliest memories was seeing a catfish hanging out both sides of the sink. And, you know, because we had to eat what was available. We had turtles and we hunted rabbits. And it didn't matter if we had money to buy it at the grocery store. That's how we ate, because people starved back then. And my relatives going back. I'm also a Native American.
Where is this, Joe?
Kansas.
Okay.
I'm also Potawatomi Indian, and my ancestors went through a lot of crap. So that part on my mom's side came into our family too, how important it was to know what you are eating and respect what you eat, be thankful for it. Even corn dogs at the gas station, be thankful for it. So there's some things you may or may not know, but in our food system in America, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. You go through the valley and you see peas being grown and grain. You see chickpeas, things like that. The farmers spray at least 3 times a year glyphosates on those fields. And that in itself isn't terribly bad, because they've learned to put so little on there, it barely kills the weeds. And I've done some soil tests after 7 years of that, and there's no trace of glyphosates in the soil. But there's about 75 crops that the USDA allows to be desiccated. What that means is, if you're a farmer and you don't want all those vines tangled up in your machine, your harvester, you're going to spray that with glyphosates so it'll dry. And there's big grain farmers all over our country who control their harvest time by spraying them. They got a storm coming in a week, they spray it, dry it out, then they harvest it. You drive through Ronan, you drive through southern Idaho, especially in the fall, all the fields are just brown. Why? It's because they kill all the potato vines with chemical. All the sugar beets, same thing. So sugar beets aren't as dangerous as potatoes, because sugar beets are highly processed for sugar, and it cooks it and all that stuff. So a lot of that is dissipated. But potatoes, if you go to McDonald's and you order fries, you're getting small doses of these chemicals, because that's just the reality of the food system in America. I have neighbors that have gardens that when they see a weed, they pull out their spray and they get that weed. Yeah, but they also spray their plants sometimes because they have bugs on them. So my motivation for being here is to, if you don't already know, I want you to know that you really should be growing your own food when you can. I mean, I take my wife out to dinner. We eat a baked potato or fries or whatever, but that's not our diet every day. But there's, what's his name, Zach Bush, are you familiar with him? He's done studies and he's convinced, and if you look him up on the web and you go through his presentations, you learn that what is it? They're projecting that 1 in 10 boys that are 12 years old will have autism in about 10 years. Right now, it's off the charts already.
And low sperm count.
Yep. The other thing is, my generation, I have friends and I'm always meeting people that have nerve-related diseases. They have Parkinson's or they have Alzheimer's, all kinds of nerve-related things. Because these chemicals, you only have one cell wall between your stomach and your immune system. So over time, this stuff can penetrate that. That's why it goes into the brain or in the nervous system, and you have these diseases in America that are just rampant. So again, motivated, this knowledge motivated me to be really serious about growing my own food. I have potatoes running out my ears, carrots, lettuce. I like lettuce. Brassicas are good. But it's the same thing in the meat we eat, right? Because the feed that they're getting is contaminated. And that goes into the meat, that goes into your body. So be careful where you buy your food. You know, buying organic food at the grocery store is a big step towards motivating farmers to stop poisoning the crops and you buy organic. But I was videoing a professor at one of the Aero conferences, and he did a study in California. This has been 4 years ago, so it may have changed some, but he studied who owned the organic farms in California and what did these guys practice to make it organic. Well, I think it was like 80% of the organic farms were owned by 3 groups of people. And these people didn't change their farming techniques. They just changed the label on the poisons they were using in the farm and insecticides. They weren't really using good regenerative organic farming practices like you guys probably were, and you guys are.
It is my understanding that in order to classify as organic, you have to have 3 years of no applications. And what these farms are doing is they're doing a rotation where they'll go 3 years on a part of land with no applications, and then they'll apply, and then they'll rotate and go to another area that has been had no applications for 3 years, and then they'll heavily chemicalize that, and they rotate.
That's definitely a possibility.
And a lot of one of the research studies I saw showed that the residue was still in the soil from, I think it was a longitudinal study that I looked at about 10 years ago, and it had been 13 years since application, and the residue was still in the soil.
Which chemical do you know?
I don't.
Yeah. I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, in the 5 acres that I tested, that we weren't finding any chemicals.
But the glyphosate goes into the food because they spray it just before they harvest.
Yeah, that's the desiccation. That's what we're talking about. So there's a lot of angles with this. Just know your farmer. If you're buying from farmers, like what you're growing here is good. It's a good thing you're doing.
So quick question, Joe, was that Fred Provenza who researched?
I don't remember his name. It's on howtofarmandgarden.com. That's my YouTube channel. It's available. We used to have Zach's stuff, but he has since asked me to take it down because he's making money off that, which is okay. But my experience with farmers is that it's hard for them doing commodity crops to make any money. Well, why is that? Well, it's a commodity. It's traded on the open market throughout the world. They have no control of how much money they get for their crop. No control at all. It's just probably you hear, oh, oil went down to $50 a barrel. Well, Wheat does the same thing, and peas and everything else. Even I've seen some places where fish is controlled like that too now, because there's so much farm fishing going on. So be aware and share. That's what I'm saying. Have any of you heard the name Bob Quinn? Look it up.
Yeah.
He's proven.
Bob has
Free the seeds.
Free the seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, I've videoed him several times, spent a lot of time with the man. He's just brilliant. But he's proven that you can make money in organic business. But it's so bad, the pollution is so bad. They had like 5,000 acres under management. And they were harvesting the grain, making bread out of it, and selling it in Europe. Well, lo and behold, they had to stop selling it in Europe in many places because it wouldn't meet the organic certification, because it was polluted with chemicals, glyphosates, and some pesticides, because that stuff is sprayed so heavily it moves around in the jet stream. So, you ever had a whitefly infestation in your garden?
We don't talk about this.
Those move in the jet stream. I mean, things move in the wind. That's why row cropping is another thing that's broken in our system. But organic gardening and organic farming done correctly is really the answer to that. So why? We talked about our own health and the health of the people we love, right? So let's go into the soil. So it was really fun for me to learn that there are microbes in there, there's nematodes, there's bacteria, there's fungi, there's all kinds of stuff, and these guys live in community. And if the community is healthy, that system works. If it's not healthy, not so much. You have sick plants, whatever. So there's a symbiotic relationship between what's going on in the soil and the health of the plant. You may, from a commercial standpoint, when you're gardening, they may have done pH studies, for example, and that's a big deal, because on scale, in big farms with chemicals, that's how you're taught in school, is that you have to watch that pH. There's some truth in that if it's radical one way or another. But did you know that most plants, when they pull the energy in from the sun and the air, and they create sugars, and they send that down to the roots, that causes the cateni, the uptake of nutrients, with a symbiotic relationship with what's going on down there. So I would challenge you to do this. Go out and take a pH test in your ground, just someplace there where you're not growing anything, and then do it right next to your plant and see what it is. Each plant is going to create an environment that's good for them. That's why, as a gardener, you don't really need to worry about pH. Just have healthy soil. Okay? So, if you have healthy soil, you have healthy plants, then you can have healthy people. Why? Okay, say that you tried to eat a steak, but you didn't have any biome in your stomach. This is not you. This is foreign objects, same as in the ground. There's a biome in your gut. If that's healthy, you're going to be able to do the same thing the plant's doing. It's exactly the same thing. If your gut is healthy, you're eating good foods and you're feeding that biome in there the right stuff, you're not poisoning it, your body's going to be able to extract the nutrients it needs for your body, and you'll be healthier. I mean, you all think I'm, 40, right? That was funny, wasn't it? Anyway. So these things are important to understand, that I think there's a really wise saying that you can really put in your brain for this. is that you don't live to eat. You eat to live. It's fuel for you, your brain, your emotions. There's been a lot of studies of, Braxton studies is one of them, but they take vegetables that are not grown in good soil, they're just fed, and then ones that are, and the nutrition is 70-90% more dense. They look exactly the same, but they're not the same. So, motivating you, what I want you to do is make a decision to learn how to get your soil healthy and keep it healthy. Now, somebody mentioned that their farm, their ground was being tilled on a regular basis. You know, if you're thinking that you can't till your soil because it really messes up the biome in the soil, there's some truth to that. If you overdo it, a little bit of it is okay. Why? What do microbes eat? What do they eat? What do they feed on? Organic matter, right? What else? Just like your compost pile. That's what breaks down your compost pile. What do you have to have in a compost pile? Air and water, right? So if your soil is compacted, you know, your kids or your grandkids have ran up and down your dog, your cat, whatever, and they've over time compacted that. You got to get a broad fork in there and open that up or till it. And I think that it's helpful to have a very observant personality or habits in your garden, in your soil. Dig down in there and see what's going on. What's it look like? Are there big clods of clay, or are there big clods of biome in there? You can look at the roots and you can actually see the nematodes and stuff on there. You've done that, haven't you? You can actually see that. Microscopes are fun. I don't own one, but I've been with people that have looked at them. It's fascinating what's going on in there. But again, I want you to relate to that, to what's going on in you. Because that's how your body works. It works just like the plants do. They're plants, you're animals. There's a symbiotic relationship. Now, there's two kinds of carbon that are available in the ground. Does anybody know what they are? Oh, good. Let me jump into what biochar is. It can be made with any kind of substrate. You can use plant matter, peanut shells, coconut shells. What's some other things you guys have heard of biochar being made of? Hardwood, softwood, green wood, dry wood. It all has a different carbon makeup to start with. It's a different substance. Just like your carbon makeup is probably different than hers is. Okay?
Our wood-fired hot tub, we end up with ashes and char. Can we use that?
Okay. Well, let me explain the whole process and that'll answer your question.
Okay.
So, when you burn something to ash, that carbon is different than when you cook it. When you make charcoal in an oxygen-starved environment, what you get is you get a stable carbon. And there's two kinds of carbon, and they're labile carbon. I think I pronounced that. L-A-B, labile, that's how you say it. L-A-B-I-L-E. I'll leave this with you. And then you have recalcitrant carbon, which is stable carbon. Stable carbon will not break down for hundreds of years. So when you cook a substrate, we use whitewood chips. And what it does is it pops it like popcorn. It has all this open stuff in it. And it's cooked almost enough to make some of it into graphites. which is really cool because when you put that in the ground, it increases the electron exchange in the ground, which is important for the health of the microbes and the uptake, the cationic. So that's just one of the functions of that stable carbon. So the other kind of carbon is like when you take manure or straw or hay or your clippings from the whatever in your garden and you put that in, that breaks down fairly fast. Then 3-4 years, there's nothing left of it. Why?
Microbes eat it.
The microbes eat it. It feeds them. So you have to feed the microbes. They have to eat. But what stable carbon does is it creates an environment like what? Did you tell a joke back there?
I make noises for worms and microbes and stuff. We're hungry down here.
Yes. You can also overfeed them and kill them. Brown over in North Dakota, what's his first name? He's a regenerative farmer. He talks all over the country. Gabe Brown. He was so good at that he had too much organic material. He was like killing them. It became toxic there for a while. So anyway, too much of a good thing like water is bad. Too much chocolate, it's bad.
Soil sour? Is that what it is?
I don't know. I didn't get a lot of information out of him, but he had to change some stuff to stop putting so much in. But anyway, so when you put stable carbon in your ground, that's not going to break down, and it has all this open space in it. What it does is it provides a home. It's not fertilizer. You can say that the other part of the carbon, like our biochar, is about 50 to 55% stable carbon, but it's all carbon. Part of it will feed and break down, and part of it will give a home, a permanent home for the nutrients and all the microbes to thrive in. So if you put too much biochar just in your ground, oh, this is fun, we're going to put that in there. You put about 20% biochar in there. What's going to happen? It's going to suck the life out of all the nutrients out of your ground. It's going to be, in the first year, your crops are not going to be very good. So what do? You have to fill the gas tank. You have to fill those homes with something healthy. So that's why the compost tea that you're using is so important. When you're starting a new garden, what I recommend is you take 50% biochar and 50% compost, you mix that up, you wet it down and get it to inoculate, then you till that in through your root zone. Then don't ever touch it. It's fine. My garden is 7 years old and I've never put an amendment on it since I did that. And it's doing great. I do rotate my crops and I do aerate my ground, especially with potatoes. I'll grow potatoes, you have to dig them up, and it aerates the ground.
So you're doing it with a live pulse, or are you tilling it?
Well, I don't till it. I could, but
So you're aerating with a bark pulse?
yes. Well, I dig my potatoes.
Okay.
Yeah, you rotate that up. And, there's some people that say, well, you got to leave those roots in there to feed the microbes. So you have these big gnarly roots from the tomatoes that go, everywhere. I pull them up because
They tend to get disease.
yeah, well, that and takes a long time for them to break down, but you can aerate your ground that way. Now, a practice that I do is I mulch. And what I like to do is find a farmer who has had alfalfa for a long time and he doesn't have, like he's in his third year or so and he doesn't have a bunch of grass and weeds in it. And they'll let me go underneath the stack and pick the hay up, alfalfa, or they'll have a bale that broke or whatever. I'll get that and I'll mulch with that. And that helps keeps the weeds down, but it also puts nitrogen back in the ground and organics for the microbes. And I do my own composting, and I do that just from kitchen scraps and my own stuff and turn it. It gets up about this high and then it shrinks. 2 years and it's still only this high. It's still breaking down because I don't turn it enough. But those are all things you can learn on your own how to compost and that. But again, observation. Talk to your microbes. That'll remind you that they're there, you know. But they have to have air and they have to have water. So that's why cover crops are so important. Cover crops aerate the soil. Then a lot of guys will just chop them down and use a planter to go in them, or just use a mulch and just, you know, move them back where you're planting. You can do that in your own garden. And rooty crops are real important, especially if you have clay soil. You want that stuff to go down there. Turnips, there's all kinds of cover crops that have deep roots. There's ryegrass you can plant that is just annual. It just comes up once and that's it. And if you have good soil, it really gets some roots in there. Feeds the microbes, gives them water and stuff. The other thing is to be careful about what plants to plant behind what plants. If I'm going to grow peas in the same place every year, that's not so good. If I'm going to grow tomatoes in the same place, that's no good because they just suck the nitrogen right out of the ground. So rotating your crops is important. Learn about that and pay attention. That's part of the fun of gardening and growing your own food. And experiment a little bit. You know, try having a place where you don't put any organics. You don't mulch it or whatever. You want to see the difference. Go ahead and do that. I mean, that's how you discover. And, you know, you can read books and you can listen to people like me palaver all day long, but if you don't engage in the process yourself, you're missing out, because that's where, for me, that's where the juice is. That's a lot of fun. I met a gal from Ronan this year that's she grows certified potato seeds. Well, that was cool. But I learned she has 15 different varieties. All kinds of cool potatoes. So I traded some biochar and got all these. So this year, half my garden is in all these different kinds of potatoes. I'm going to see what they taste like and what they look like, how the harvest is. That's what's fun for me. And I know when I eat those, and I give those to my grandkids and my great-grandkids, it'll be awesome for them, you know, rather than the Fruit Loops that their mother gives them. Are you listening to this? Yeah. Okay, so again, biochar is not a fertilizer. It does have carbon in it that will that will break down with your microbes. But half of it's going to be there 100 years from now. So we recommend when you calculate how much you need, whether it's mixed with compost or not, you don't need any more than 10% stable carbon through your root zone. If you have more than that, it's probably not the best thing. If it was 5%, that's better than having 15%. Okay, so you kind of have to watch that too. And it depends on what kind of soil you have too. I mean, every soil has its own thing. Even in the same plot, I have part of my garden that has completely different soil than the other. Well, it was just a big pile of sand and grass when I moved there. But it's weird how that stuff happens, you know. Floods happen, whatever, it moves the soil around. So, you know, pay attention to it. A lot of people, they just plant stuff, you know, and that's fun. The flowers are pretty or whatever. But I think you're missing out when you don't engage and understand what's going on underneath the ground and see what effect that has. I recently interacted with a guy who did this experiment with tomatoes. He had 6 different holes. So he started the same plant, the same way, in the same soil, in the same environment, so all the seedlings were exactly the same. And so he went out there and he put amendments in each one in a bag, so they couldn't, you know, they couldn't migrate from one hole to the next. That was the idea. It kept it contained. So he put fish heads in one, fish scraps, and he put chopped up just greens out of the garden in one, and he put eggshells in one, and you know, he did all these different experiments. Which one do you think did the best?
Fish heads.
It was the one without anything.
What's that?
Because the microbes had already broke down and had a healthy soil environment there already. Second was the ones where they chopped up the greens and put it in there. That broke down the quickest. And that's the other thing about, composting. You do have to make stuff small, because it'd be like a worm trying to eat an elephant. It's basically what you're asking a microbe to do when you put a whole potato in there, or a whole carrot. You did that, huh? But, yeah. Potatoes make good amendments too. You can smash them up and mix them in water and poo, and that makes really good amendments.
I'm a bit of a keener compost.
Yeah.
I'm a turner.
That's good. Yeah, I have a really bad back. I avoid it.
Well, I'm building one that is flat in the middle.
Uh-huh.
So I just go boop, boop, and then just slide in.
Do you say that when you do that?
When I hang out with her,
Yeah, to the microbes and the worms. Yes. Yeah, red wigglers are just fantastic little things. In my greenhouse, I dug a hole that was 10 feet deep, 10 feet wide, and 50 feet long. And I put 500 feet of 6-inch pipe in 3 layers in rock. Covered it, put the soil in, put blowers on it so I can get that ambient temperature up there. Well, I had a leak once and it got down there. I had to dig out part of it. I was down 13 feet and I was finding worms 13 feet deep. That just blew my mind. I did not know that could happen. Did you know? Did you ever see that before? Oh, you learned something today. That's good.
Were they red or blue?
They were definitely red. Just
Red was it 13 feet?
not the little ones. The
Good size, right?
yeah, they're just they're earthworms. There's another name for them. Somebody with a memory can tell me. Yeah,
Red wigglers.
fish and worms, the big ones.
So in this experiment, there was just one tomato plant that was planted in just like the regular soil, and then the other 10 plants were in that same soil, but with fish heads and eggshells
Yep.
and lettuce. And the one that had no amendment, not even compost, did better.
Right, but he had healthy soil.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was his whole point.
So there was a great balance already happening.
Yes, yes.
And the additions of whatever people thought were enhancing plants were actually throwing off the already beautifully balanced soil.
Yeah, because the microbes had to break those down. So
They're like, "We got
what it did is it confirmed that when you see the practices of people making compost or buying good compost. Now, let me pause there about good compost. I don't see single input compost as healthy. I mean, it'll work, but if you have multi-input compost where you have all kinds of different plants or all kinds of different scraps, and those break down, you're going to have a what? Diversity. You're going to have a larger biome, a bigger city.
Sorry to interrupt you. A single input would eat just one,
like a monocrop
just a monocrop compost?
Yeah, well, often what you'll see is somebody will go to like Hedstrom's and all they get is cow poop and sand. That's what that is. And it's got a lot of nutrients and stuff in it, but it's very limited. It's very limited. Dirt Rich in the valley has really good compost. Genesis Biochar in Summers brings in good compost. But we bring it in. It's gone now. We're bringing in another 100 yards here pretty soon. Well, anytime you put red wigglers in your compost pile, it's going to really help a lot. The one thing she said that is important, I think, to mention, to visit on, is that just like I said, it's good to inoculate your biochar because it's just an empty home, right? Well, you can also inoculate your compost pile. put some good, healthy soil in there with the microbes, layered in, just doesn't take a lot, just a little bit. But it's like the bread. What is the bread that people keep the starter from? Sourdough? Sourdough? It's the same thing. It's the same concept that you can do with your compost pile.
So the big thing that I learned about doing it that way was in order to get really good compost, you had to balance out the nitrogen in the carbon.
Yes.
And that's what we're alternating the greens and the browns did. And then we would cap it with soil on the top and water it, and then just leave it. And never have to turn it.
Do you remember the gal that we videoed here?
Coal masters.
No, different one. She was from the east side. We videoed and she was teaching compost.
Oh, yeah. Patty Armbruster.
Yeah. She has, we videoed her and it's on our YouTube channel, but she did a really good presentation if you have questions on composting, but it's a good thing to do.
And then she came here and did a workshop at one point on the Johnson's sumac composters.
Interesting.
Where you put a pallet down and then you take perforated pipe and you put about 4 or 5 pieces of perforated pipe and then you put a perimeter around it with a combination of wheat cloth and fencing to hold it.
So it lets it aerate in the water. Yeah.
You fill it up and it's
Yep.
self-aerating.
Yep. But if you have just a small garden, I mean, just make a pile. There's no reason to ever let your compost pile be more than 3 feet tall. That's kind of a rule that works really well. If you do it as complete as she can get up, she does up higher, you can do that. But that's a good size for that. We're out of time, so I need to ask you if you have any questions.
There's a major point, Joe, that you made before for me, and I like the way you stated it in terms of the biochar being like a microbe hotel.
Right.
And the fact that it has all these open spaces in it that really provides a habitat for
The way I like to explain it is that it's like populating your ground with mansions with empty rooms. And there's somebody out in front of them say, come on in here, I have a permanent home for you, move right in. And that's what happens. Also, in the ocean, there are these coral reefs that are home in the midst of all that environment. That's the same kind of concept for it. Again, it's not fertilizer. Our biochar has 2 kinds of carbon in it, permanent and then food carbon, I like to call it. So, any other questions?
Are you 75?
No. I'm 69.
As far as inoculating,
So would I.
is it like
As far as the what?
where you can
As far as the
inoculate-
what?
Like inoculating the
Uh-huh.
biochar. Can you inoculate it? Is there a point where it's useless to do that? Can you do like too much? So like right now, because we're inoculating ours, we got like wood chips, hay, biochar, and some compost that we're mixing, and then we're inoculating it with basically a compost tea, a fungal compost tea.
The compost tea is the smallest of the inoculation. It's really concentrated microbes, so it helps break down all that rest of that stuff. But hay is real stemmy, and wood chips take a long time to break down. If you're just starting with a new piece of land that you're doing, I would personally not put the wood chips in it. I would put small stuff, good compost, and mix that with the biochar. Keep it wet as long as you can, then put it in. Mix it in with your soil. And then what you've done is you've inoculated the environment in the soil with microbes and a place for those microbes to thrive. So if you populate it with rocks that they can't penetrate,
Right.
or wood chips, defeats the purpose. I got to go, so I have band practice, so I'm going to leave my cards. And if you are interested in howtofarmandgarden.com, if you forget it, there's a link on here. There's also a link in here, some information about how to get free biochar and compost with the NRCS. their equip program. I don't think Doge has put an end to that yet. It's still happening. So, and you have my number. Glad to help if you have questions. Thank you.
He's done
Thanks,
tons